Just in the last few minutes, we spoke to Education Minister Naftali Bennett. He's the leader of the far-right Jewish Home Party, which broadly represents the settlement movement within Israel. A lot happening in Israel today and a lot to discuss. Firstly, we discussed the question of Palestinian reconciliation. What does it mean for Israel now that Hamas and Fatah, the two rival parties, are coming closer together? Now, the Prime Minister has taken quite a moderate approach. He's saying, let's wait and see, let's monitor events on the ground and we'll act accordingly. Not so for Minister Bennett. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say.
So we're talking about not a national unity government, but a national terror government. And it's clear that Israel cannot and will not negotiate or have any sort of dealings with such a government. Would Americans be willing to deal with any government that had bin Laden as one of their parties? That's exactly what we're facing today.
Some very strong words, and as you say, Lon, quite different from the Prime Minister's stance.
Exactly. So the Prime Minister is pursuing a more moderate approach. Bennett really is leading the hardliner approach against Palestinian reconciliation. Now, I should point two things. First of all, a little bit of fact-checking. The two sides signed an agreement to allow the Palestinian Authority to return to Gaza and later to hold discussions about forming a unity government. They haven't actually formed a unity government yet, as Minister Bennett would have us believe. The second point is that Minister Bennett says that Israel should sever all ties to the Palestinian Authority, saying it's now a terror authority. When I asked him specifically on the question of cooperation over security coordination, he says he's not talking about cutting security cooperation with an organization he now defines as a Hamas terror government. So possibly an interesting contradiction within his policy. We'll see whether that is going to be resolved in the coming few days. But we also discussed with him the question of regional security. Of course, this morning we heard confirmation that Israeli jets destroyed a battery of anti-aircraft missiles outside Damascus. He's pretty clear that Israel has the right to take unilateral action beyond its borders to counter any threat to its security. Let's have a listen to what he had to say there.
In any case, we have a very clear desire for peace and quiet on our northern border while preventing our enemies from getting too strong in a way that we'd have difficulty to defend ourselves. We have to keep ourselves free to act, and we'll continue doing that.
So here we have Bennett saying Israel needs the freedom to act in the skies above Syria and Lebanon. Of course, it struck the battery after it fired at a jet over the skies of Lebanon. That question is now becoming more complicated now that Assad has consolidated his control over Syria. That question is going to be top of the agenda with the Russian defense minister who's in the country today. Can Israel keep its freedom of maneuvers over the skies of the Middle East, now controlled by the Russian Air Force?
And the full interview tonight on Debrief, 9 Israel time and 1 p.m.
2 p.m.
New York time. So don't miss it. Elon, thank you very much for joining me for this.